I guess I can welcome you to the Mount too, seeing as to how I'm kind of from here. And I hope you are having a good afternoon. It's kind of bizarre not being able to see anybody. I'm talking into this darkness. Anyway, as you could probably guess, that what I'm going to be interested in talking about, because I've been doing this for so many years, is learning. I'm really interested in learning, and I've been interested in learning for as long as I've been learning. And so what I want to do is just explore a little bit about what learning is, and also talk with you about what I think, how I think learning is probably one of the greatest things that lies behind who we are as human beings and what we've managed to accomplish and throughout our history. But to start, what I'm going to do is tell a little story. Now, it's going to be an unremarkable story, but there's marvels in it, and I want to highlight what these marvels are. And so last weekend was beautiful. The snow had fallen, and this is a great opportunity. We don't get a lot of these big snowfalls to go out and be in the snow in Nova Scotia, so wanted to take advantage of it. Got the snowshoes on with my wife and my little dog, so we went out to our favorite snowshoeing spot and worked our way back into the woods. And I just sort of came out into this clearing, and it was absolutely stunning. The sun was out, the snow was just sort of drifting down. It was, like the ice crystals were in the air, the trees were all humped over with snow, and it was absolutely stunning. And that's the first marvel, right? That's the first marvel I wanted to talk about, because we live in this world that's so incredibly rich and beautiful, and all of you are going to have stories to tell about your experience of the wonder of being in this world. Earlier in the morning, and this is sort of the academic Don coming into it. Earlier in the morning, I was reading, some really interesting stuff about how our brains create images for us, how our brains and our perceptual organs create images for us. And as I was looking at this marvel, and I just thought suddenly, geez, this is marvelous what I'm seeing, but what's even kind of more marvelous is that what I'm seeing, what's all this is actually in my head. It's in my brain. Right now, I am in your head. It's kind of creepy, isn't it? But our brains actually, so all these little sparkles of light, all of the details in the trees, and this amazing thing that we experience, it's all in our heads. It's crazy. That's the second marvel. Right? So we have the marvel of the world that we experience, and we have the marvel of our ability to actually create this world in our heads for us. Isn't that crazy? So watch my little dog. He goes off and he's playing in the snow. He's get right down in there and he's digging away. And I'm thinking, I wonder how my dog's brain is creating this world for him. I wonder what kind of images. I'm sure they have to do with smells, because at that point he was right down in trying to find something probably to eat. But I'm just wondering, I could sort of try to imagine that, but it's really kind of, it would be a real stretch of my imagination to be able to put myself inside my dog's head and to have some sense of his experience of what was out there. My wife comes up beside me, and we're sort of standing there together, and she looks at me and she says, "Isn't it wonderful?" And I think that's the third marvel, actually. The third marvel is that she, unlike my dog, could actually kind of tell me what was going on in her head. Isn't it wonderful? Is this kind of incredible thing that we can do as human beings. We can actually share our experiences with one another. And in sharing our experiences with one another, we can engage in supporting one another in our learning. So one of the things I think that makes us incredible as a species is we can actually share what our experiences are with one another. Really, no other animal can do this like we can do it. Other animals can kind of do it, but we really pull it off. And there's quite a bit of interesting research and interesting work that's done in trying to explore how this actually happened in humans. And it turns out that it's probably something that we really became good at about 100,000 years ago. And just try to think for a minute about what it kind of entails. So what I would have to do in order to understand what she said, what my wife had said, is I have to kind of perceive her as a being like me. I'd have to see her as a creature who's looking at the world like I would look at the world. I'm not sure my dog actually sees me as a being like him who's seeing the world. I don't know if he can pull that off. Anyway, I see her as a being who can see the world like that. She sees me as a being who can see the world. So we can basically, she's looking at the world from there, and I'm looking at the world from there. And I know that she's seeing the world, and she knows that I'm seeing the world, and she knows that I know that she's seeing the world, right? And you get into that whole friends thing where like I know that she knows that he knows. And we can go around quite a few times, probably about 4 actually. I mean, they've done some research on how many kind of times we can go around with that and be comfortable. And we can actually do that a lot. And at a certain point, what actually happens, if she knows and I know that she knows, we can actually sort of leave our own sort of individual perspective on the world and actually kind of co-create a joint view of the world. That's pretty sophisticated. That's a pretty sophisticated and marvelous kind of accomplishment. And what it enables us to do, if we're looking at the world, and if she knows that I know that she's looking at the world, we can basically begin to nudge towards a common understanding of what that world is like. We can begin to kind of harmonize our understandings of the world together. If we do that, then we can kind of create common conceptions of the world. We can basically do things and impart meanings into the world that the world itself, just sitting there, doesn't have. So for example, if I have a coffee cup and I leave it on the counter and I go to the room and someone comes in and picks up my coffee cup, someone could say, hey, no, that's Donovan's coffee cup. What is in that coffee cup that makes it mine? The only thing that's in there is that we all kind of agree that that's my coffee cup. There's nothing in that coffee cup itself that says that. It's just me saying, or it's just our agreement that that's my coffee cup. So think about, for the last 60,000 years, we've been making these agreements. We've been making these common understandings. And then what we do is we can share them with each other because we can begin to, what we actually are able to do at a certain point is we can create these common understandings about what words mean. So dog, everyone knows what the word dog means, but that's just sort of an agreement we have. There's nothing about a dog that makes it dog. It's just an agreement we have. And so what we can do is we can share these agreements down through time. And this is kind of spectacular because what we can do is we can pass our memories down. So we actually, in conversing with one another and in sharing with one another, we actually can begin to get a sense of the depth of time that we couldn't all by ourselves. And we live this sort of little window of life that opens up. And if I'm totally by myself and not communicating with anyone else, I mean, I'm not really going to have a deep sense of time. I'm not going to really know about my forebears, or I'm not going to know about anything that's happened, And also, it enables us perhaps to even begin to talk a little bit about things that have not yet come. So we can begin to talk about the future. So human beings then, because we can actually do this sharing, because we can kind of learn collaboratively, we can have this sense of the past and the future. As time goes on, what we do is we basically develop a deliberate kind of sense of how we can actually foster the learning of others. So we become kind of deliberate in how we teach our children. We can engage them in a sort of this, we invite them in and engage them in learning together with us in this sort of collaborative learning context that we can establish and we set up as human beings. It's all very kind of interesting and exciting. So this room, everything that we're talking about today, this is all kind of the accomplishment of many, many generations of people building understandings that we now use. We just pull them out, our words and common things. If I said we're going to a forest, it's snow covered, in your minds there's the image of that, right? So we can actually just use that knowledge from our forebears to actually build stuff now. So I work in a university. one of the things that we do in the university is we basically invite our students to become connected to and part of the flows of culture, whether it be scientific knowledge that has been built over thousands of years, whether it's the arts and literature that have been building and over thousands of years, languages. This is the adventure that you are part of when you come into a university as a student. As a faculty member, then I'm also part of trying to figure out ways of getting it so that people become part of those flows. I want to talk so that's sort of the wonder of all this. Our ability to learn collaboratively is what makes it possible for us to. We really need this to be rich. We're at a sort of a time in history. There's tremendous changes. We face tremendous challenges. It's really important for education and for these rich processes of learning to be as good as they can be. I mean, that's why I'm interested in being this director of teaching and learning at my university. I really want teaching and learning to be as best they can be at our university. And so we have to figure out the things we're doing right and that really work, and we have to sort of pay attention to the things that can damage that. And because learning in a collaborative way involves sort of learning in a community, it isn't always as robust as we might hope it to be. There's things we can do to actually interfere with that collaborative learning process, this emergent power we have as human beings to learn together. And I guess one of the things that we can do is we can actually disrupt the communities that people are in, disrupt the communities that people are in, so that learning, doesn't move so smoothly. So, for example, we can propagandize, and so what we would do when we propagandize is we basically ignore the fact that learning is actually kind of a collaborative process, one that isn't something that we just deliver reified knowledge to somebody and then they can basically, suck it in just like it's some kind of, like they're a sponge. When we actually engage people in collaborative learning, what we're actually doing is engaging them as co-participants with us in producing and reproducing that knowledge, so that there's an active and critical part to that. So if there's not an opportunity for people to actually participate in the production and reproduction of that knowledge, if they don't see themselves as part of the process of generating knowledge, then that kind of disrupts it. What we can do is we can basically get it so that people are brainwashed, and it's not really an effective way of maximizing what we can do with this important learning process that we have in our hands. I think making learning contexts unsafe, making them have the wrong kind of objective. I mean, I'm always, and I've talked a lot with my colleagues about this, is the ways in which credentials can actually, and the pursuit of credentials can actually interfere with learning. So it would go something like this: if when you come into a class, the first thing you do in the outline is you look at the bottom of the outline to see what you have to do to get the grade that you want in that class. And so what's not in that, the professor, when they give you the outline, that would be a very important part for them too. What happens is that instead of actually engaging in sort of an authentic kind of pursuit of knowledge in the class, you pursue the credential in the class, and then knowledge and your learning might be kind of sort of the sad side effect of that, rather than being the other way around, where what we would do is we would say, well, let's engage as learners in the class, and then your credential will be the side effect of your learning. So there's kind of a reversal, and that's kind of a disturbing thing. And I think we really pay attention to the ways in which things we do as teachers and learners in our education, can serve to undermine what we're doing. So that's kind of the message. I'm really interested in learning. I think we have this tremendous power to learn collaboratively, and it's an ancient power and one we've inherited from, thousands of generations of our forebears. I think we have to protect it and use it as much as we can to address the kinds of challenges we're facing in our society today. So that's my message for you. Thanks.